Good morning once again, and a shout out to our online community. So glad you're here with us today. This morning we are diving into chapter 5 of our new favorite book, Birthing a Greater Reality by Unity minister and author Robert Brummet. So last week we considered our shadow. And we all have a shadow. I'm hoping that you're learning to make friends with yours, because our shadow is nothing more than the parts of ourselves that we at some time have judged as bad or wrong or less than. And those parts of ourselves that we have titled unworthy, the parts of ourselves that we hide from ourselves and one another, is nothing more than a disguise of your true self. It is that part of us that we have this limiting belief that if we share that part of ourselves with one another, we would no longer be loved. You all know that part, right? That part that you hide from? Yeah. And so that limiting belief serves us no more. And it is our process to become willing to take responsibility for the shadow self. Are you ready? You're all supposed to say, yes, I can't wait. So you try that now. Yes, I can't wait. I'm not convinced. So as we become willing to take responsibility for that shadow self, it loses its scary essence over us, because we see in reality all it is a part of ourselves that we rejected. And knowing that the Christ presence, unity principle number 2, is within you, there is nothing of you that is worthy of rejection, made in the image and likeness of the divine. Does that sound vaguely familiar to you? And so our evolutionary task is to reclaim all of our essential nature, especially the parts that we have judged as less than, unworthy, bad, etc., etc., etc. Fill in the blank. Our work is to integrate the shadow into our conscious awareness. We are to see those parts of ourselves and love them. Easy. When you're in a community like this, it's easy. We're willing. In the past, regardless of why we labeled those parts of ourselves as unlovable, we let that go. It is no longer a truth that we claim for ourselves. And so what we want to claim is something new. Last week, I left you with this thought. Every time you are tempted to react in the same old way, ask if you want to be a prisoner of the past or a pioneer for the future. Well, I, for one, am a pioneer for the future, and I am taking all of you with me. So as we step into being on the evolutionary path and we embrace our continuing evolution, as conscious beings, we recognize that we are all on a similar trail. We've gone hiking, sometimes with Brian, and he leads us on a very safe trail that has been walked by others before us. It's not like we don't know where we're going. We follow the trail. And as we become fully aware of our self-identity, at some point, self being the ego self, at some point we then feel a discomfort. We are dissatisfied with the outer material expression and experience. Something happens where we are able to catch a glimpse of something bigger and greater and more expanded. Something happens. And when we experience that crack in the shell of the ego, our mind opens up. We become dissatisfied. And we attempt to walk into that glimpse of the future that was laid out for us in our thoughts, in our dreams, in our reading, in our study. And the natural evolutionary pull of the universe will pull us into that next experience, which is our evolution. But before we transcend fully into that next experience, we must integrate all of the aspects of ourself, especially those ones that we have repressed and labeled bad, less than, unworthy. And so we all must engage in our own personal shadow work. Learn to love and embrace the shadow. It's really very sweet. Because it's you. It's the essence of you that you erroneously labeled as bad. So not only do we have the opportunity to look at our own individual shadow, yay, we get to look at our group shadow, what it is when all of our shadows come together in group. Oh my God. And we get to look at how they all interplay. So we get to look and accept the repressed parts of ourselves individually and as a group. And eventually we become an integrated self where we have re-accepted all of those bits and pieces that we had judged and labeled, and we experience a sense of wholeness and well-being. Doesn't it feel good to even just think about it? Imagine if you can feel it every single day of your waking life. Awesome. But it is that evolutionary pull that will get us to that point. Along the way, you cannot get there unless you surrender to the process. And the process continues and continues and continues. Rinse and repeat. It's the layers of the onion that never go away. So Robert Brummet, the author, says that embracing the shadow is a process of integration, that human nature is not the end of our journey. It is only a stage in the ongoing evolution. The divine, the universal life force, the evolutionary impulse that is pulling us forward demands that we evolve. In the great chain of being, the evolutionary progression is from matter to body to mind to soul to spirit. We are being called to the next level from mind to soul. Many of us on this path are teetering on that fence. And so we must use our spiritual tools to assist us in awakening. And we must use those spiritual tools in a more consistent way than we did yesterday. I'm talking about a mindfulness practice, our time of prayer and meditation where we consciously connect with the indwelling divine. I'm talking about the new thought unity tools of affirmation and denial that support the awakening of the unconscious to the conscious. They help us balance our addiction to attachments and outcome. Who here is addicted to attachments and outcome? Come on now. We try to figure everything out 6 years ahead because we want it to be just a certain way. It is that addiction to outcomes and attachment that cause suffering, which is one of the basic tenets of Buddhism. So it is our ability to accept and just notice what is, without judgment, without attachment, without figuring out the outcome, just to be. Okay, you're all human beings. How are you doing with the be part? Yeah, it's harder than one thinks. So we want to use our spiritual tools more than we did yesterday and last week and last year. Because these are the tools to move and cultivate what is called bare awareness. Every time I say that phrase, I think of bare necessities in the Disney film. But that bear would call those bare necessities bare awareness because he is being aware of the experience without thought, without judgment, without attachment. To experience this, to be in alignment with our spiritual essence, we must remember that to be mindful is a bare necessity of this experience. We've experienced the other. It wasn't so much fun. So cultivate the bare awareness and your ability to experience without judgment. Mindfulness can be considered a state. I love this diagram because the dog is so mindful. He's got nothing going on except exactly what he sees, his experience. And yet the human has got all this chaos going on. Sound familiar to you too? So we can have a moment of mindfulness, which is called a state. We can also create a habitual tendency of mindfulness, which then becomes what we call a trait. We can do intentional, formal practice of mindfulness using yoga, tai chi, postures, meditation. We can walk the labyrinth in mindfulness. We can do the dishes in mindfulness. So whether you choose mindful sitting, mindful walking, or mindful eating, or mindful chores, the mindfulness of being fully present to the experience at hand is a bare necessity. So that formal practice of practicing today and tomorrow better than you did yesterday and last week leads to more and more moments of mindfulness, leads to a habitual state of mindfulness, which leads to an awakening in evolution for yourself. And you rub off on those around you. They will notice the difference. You will notice the difference. And it is what we all need at this time in evolution, is to be more mindful. It is critically important that we learn to create a healthy habit of mindfulness as a state of being. The first component of that is present time awareness, which is shown on the slide in the blue color. It refers to a stable, clear, and alert awareness of the momentary experience. In present time awareness, we are awake and alive to the moment. We know sensory experience, sights, sounds, sensations, and thoughts are happening, and we know that they are happening. We are experiencing them. When we evolved to become Homo sapiens sapiens, knowing that we know, that took place 100,000 years ago. How is it holding out in your personal experience? This is supposedly how we've been. Is that your personal experience? Because it's not really been my personal experience. Not all the time. Because we fall into this thing we call autopilot. Have you ever been on autopilot? It's like all of a sudden, boop, there you are, and you have no idea how you got there because you were so lost into the thinking and knowing only what's going on in your own human mind that you were totally clueless about anything else going on. Nothing. Zip. Nada. So when we are on autopilot, we only know our chatter, the monkey mind. We don't know that we're knowing that anything is happening around us. There's no mindfulness. There's no experience of the present. All of those sensory things are happening outside, and yet none of them register. It's all in the background. And we give it no attention whatsoever. So, the second component of mindfulness, equanimity, is also critically important and is depicted on the slide in green. And equanimity can be defined as a sense of cognitive, emotional balance. You know how I love to talk about balance. Balance is my life experience goal. I'm still working on it. But in a cognitive, emotional balance, there's no compulsion to act when you have a thought. There's an awareness of the thought that is being created. There's an awareness of the experience, but you're not triggered into action. It is the balance point between suppressing the experience and entanglement, jumping in to make it an issue of some sort or another. Equanimity is often confused with indifference because our outer world is a place where people believe they must jump in to save, rescue, discern, dissect life. That's not true. Our understanding or passive acceptance of what we experience, for example, suffering in the world, is a momentary acceptance. We don't have to immediately act. We can take that experience into our inner chamber, hold it in prayer, get our divine guidance first, so that we can then be in relation to what is this experience, how can I be with it, so that whatever actions are coming from me are for the greatest and highest good of all. It's not indifference, it's discernment. Taking a moment to breathe into what you are experiencing is wisdom in action. So we can be accepting of our present time experience and be deeply committed to co-creating a world that works for all. Taking that momentary breath before leaping into action allows spirit, your higher intuitive self, to be a part of the process. Doesn't mean you won't act at all. We must act. But act with wisdom and spiritual discernment. We can still be committed to making a change, to improving conditions in the world. As the Buddhists say, we accept the reality of the situation, but not its permanence. And so they take that time to pause for a moment before acting. So the nature of our awareness is not a product of human mind. Awareness is erroneously believed to be a product of the mind culturally because as human beings we identify with all the chatter that's going on up here. But the mind, in a sense, is a filter for awareness, not the source. There is only one source. And so imagine the old style film strip and movie projector. The awareness is the light that shines through the film strip. The light itself, the source itself, is not changed by the image on the film strip. It merely projects what is already there. In our mindfulness practice, our meditation time, the use of affirmations and denials, we empower ourselves to change the image on the film strip through which the light is projected. That is changing our consciousness. Robert Brummet says that the source of awareness is the one. There is only one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, God the good, omnipotent. To return home to the one, we must look towards the source of that awareness, God, Spirit, universal life, by any name. And we do this through our personal practice of meditation and mindfulness. What we call awakening is just seeing with clarity what is. And mindfulness is simply being aware of what is happening right now, without wishing it were different. Mindfulness is enjoying the pleasant without holding on to it so hard in fear that it will change. because it will. And mindfulness is being with the unpleasant things without fearing it will always be that way, because it won't. So I invite you to join me for Wednesday explorations to discuss deeper these chapters of this book. And if you have been interested in purchasing this book, we got a new shipment in this week, and they are available in our Cup of Consciousness bookstore. Enjoy the journey. Namaste.